Hi and welcome to The Nation. I'm RATNAM. Tabung Haji holds the savings of millions of Muslims who hope to perform the Hajj. Now, that makes trust absolutely central. But the Royal Commission of Inquiry has raised some serious questions about how the institution was managed between 2014 and 2020. By 2018, or at least this is how I understand it, Tabung Haji owed over 10 billion ringgit, more than the value of its assets. Hang on, put simply, it didn't have enough to cover what it owed. And if large numbers of depositors had tried to withdraw their money at the same time, the government could have been exposed to liabilities of 74.5 billion ringgit. Now, Tabung Haji has since been restructured and stronger oversight is apparently being considered at this point. But has enough really changed? That's one of the questions. And the bigger question is this: can millions of depositors be certain this will not ever happen again? Now, joining me is ANUAR SHUIB, Chairman of the International Development Committee at the Malaysian Financial Planning Council. ANUAR, thank you so much for taking time off to be with us. Just trying to, for those of us who are non-Muslims in this country, of course, we're all trying to make sense of this. We are also, together with our Muslim brothers of Malaysia, trying to figure out how we can stop this from happening at any institution, anyone who's holding our money. This has become a big problem within the country, and I hope with clarity and with us understanding basic math, we'll get past this. Of course, integrity is the other question we need to talk about. Now, put simply, Tabung Haji owed more money than the value of everything it owned. This is basically what it says. And if many depositors had asked for their money at the same time, the government might have had to step in. Am I right, wrong here? Yeah. Correct, yeah? Now, we now know that Tabung Haji's asset liability gap had widened to more than 10 billion ringgit by 2018, with the government potentially facing 74.5 billion in liabilities if a bank run had occurred at that point. Now, from a financial perspective, how serious, and I don't know if this is a relevant question, how serious was Tabung Haji's position at that point?
Yes. If you asking me the level of seriousness on this particular part of issues of asset and liability for the institution that manage huge amount of assets and through at the same time huge amount of liabilities, managing these two is a kind like, and you need to have a proper strategy. And when we're looking at the Tabung Haji itself, it need to follow the law. So what is the one that govern Tabung Haji, which is the Tabung Haji Act. So the Act is the one that govern them. And the Act clearly stated that if your liability is more than your asset, then you cannot pay dividend or hibah, or you can say any payout to the depositors. So looking at this with the negative figures, you're talking about the liability is more than the asset, for sure, by paying dividend or by paying hibah, it is against the law itself. I mean to say the act itself. Right. So it is a serious issue because you're breaking the law.
Okay, now for those of us who don't understand the difference between dividend and hibah, is it one and the same?
Okay, for the Muslim, we are looking at in this issue when you deposit money, for the conventional, you are normally being paid the interest,
right? An interest, sorry.
Yeah. So for the depositors, for Muslim, we cannot pay interest, and it is so what we do pay hibah. So what does it mean, hibah? Hibah means that the parties that wanted to pay to the others without any consideration. Means to say that in this particular case, the Tabung Haji is paying hibah to the depositors without any kind of whatever commitment from depositors to the Tabung Haji.
And Anwar, I'd like to move to Bank Negara now. I mean, Bank Negara is central to all this also. It's I mean, from a certain vantage point, things are different. When Bank Negara steps in, or when we look at it from the viewpoint of Bank Negara, apparently they're responsible for watching risks in Malaysia's financial system. One warning they say should raise concern. Tabung Haji reportedly, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong here, received 5 lah. Now, Bank Negara Malaysia had reportedly issued 5 warning letters, and this was between 2014 and 2016 concerning Tabung Haji's financial position, reserves and liquidity management. Of course, you can open that conversation to us and give us an understanding of that too. Now, what does it tell us when repeated warnings from the central bank do not result in corrective action? How could that have happened? Central bank is telling you, hey, something's wrong, but how could this have happened?
Okay, I would like to first thing, prior to me answering this,
I'm going to preface this first.
Let us go back to the existence of Tabung Haji itself. When before Tabung Haji exists, what happened is that the Muslim in Malaysia, whoever wanted to perform Hajj, they will need to sell their asset. They may be selling their land, all the things that they have been accumulated, wealth that they has, in order for them to go to perform Hajj. And when they come back, they have nothing. That means they have no asset to start with their new life after performing Hajj. So this is bad for the Muslim community in Malaysia. So due to that was when the idea to have an institution to avoid this kind of things from happening. So with that particular purpose, main purpose is to help Muslims perform Hajj, and when they complete their Hajj, they come back and they can still continue doing whatever they want, because they can start accumulating small amount of money regularly so that they can build it up until they can perform Hajj, enough money to perform Hajj. So that's the basic of why the reason Tabung Haji exists. And Tabung Haji is, if you look at the purpose, it's not like other commercial institutions. If you want to compare with other commercial bank, other commercial financial institution, etc., the characteristic of Tabung Haji is different than them. So that's why I said we must look and understand on this. And the act also the same thing. The Tabung Haji live and exist because of the Tabung Haji Act itself, not like other commercial institution. So due to that, Tabung Haji need not to compete to give higher return compared to other financial institution and etc.
So they need not compete, but they have to keep it stable, kan?
They must make sure that it is safe. Security is the number one priority, because the money there, people have put their trust in order for them that I have money there. One day I have enough, I want to perform my Hajj. So the money need to be secured. So due to that, whoever manage the Tabung Haji must ensure that number one priority is security of the assets that Tabung Haji has. So that's supposed to be the number one priority. And yes, true enough, you need to make sure that if that particular asset deplete, I mean lower, the return is lower than the inflation of the country, then it is bad for sure. And we're looking at it, you don't need to compete with others, but at least return a little bit higher than the inflation rate, it should be okay. That's how we're looking at it. Yeah? And when we saying that the return, you don't need to compete with the return with other commercial institution, means to say that you put priority on the security, and return is considered second to it. Okay, when we're looking at it, now discuss on the issues of the Bank Negara warning. So the institution need to ensure that the way of managing, it must follow the act, what the act says. When the Tabung Haji given warning by the Bank Negara doesn't simply give the warning without referring to something. For sure, the Bank Negara, prior to giving that particular warning, they already look at the act itself that govern the Tabung Haji. So for sure, when the Bank Negara giving warning, it means that it is not being run as supposed, following the act that govern the Tabung Haji itself. And this is the things that supposed to start opening the eyes of everybody.
Right.
And it need to be, something need to be done.
Right.
Upon Bank Negara message being delivered.
But okay lah, if you say one warning and if they didn't do anything about it, that's fine. But 4 or 5 warnings went to them. Were they how should I put this without offending anyone? Did they not heed the warnings because they thought they were bigger than the central bank? Or at that point, what would have brought about someone not listening to 5 or 4 warnings at this point?
Okay, if you're looking at that, I mean,
so this is your central bank, the biggest bank in the country, telling, hey guys, you're managing the funds of Muslims, you're not doing anything. So someone in there would have been above the law. Yes or no?
Okay, one thing to say that I mentioned earlier, there's the Tabung Haji has its own act to govern them, and Bank Negara also exists because of, I mean, you say that it is a badan berkanun, for example,
statutory body.
Yes. So when we're looking at it, there are 2 different kind of, you can say that entity that being exists, and maybe one may say that yes, I exist because of the law or the act by Parliament. You can say that, and the others wanted to give us a message also. Similarly, the one that exists because of the act of the Parliament itself. So when you're looking at it, you may say so, maybe, but I don't really know. How can we know what is happening at the board level in that particular institution? But if, for example, the institution wanted to ensure that they are running based on how they need to be governed by, for example, the Tabung Haji Act itself, that means you need somebody to understand the law that govern them. So when you understand the law that govern them, you must know what can be done, what cannot be done. For example, in the issues, we're talking about the issues asset and liability. When the liability is higher than the asset, for sure you cannot pay out the hibah, for example. So how can you still pay the hibah? So that's the triggering kind of things. And I believe maybe that is one of the reasons why the Bank Negara issued a warning. So when we are looking at this, you mentioned about not only 1 but 5 warnings. Right.
I think we are all clear as to why Bank Negara issued the warning. And for people to, I just, from a standpoint of being a Muslim or someone who manages Muslim funds, what would have been going through your head at that point, or the persons in command at that point, to say, look, we're just going to sweep this under the carpet, no one's going to know about this. But before that, I'd like to also go back to the act. We keep talking about an act. Did the people, so anyone who's put their money, and I'm just thinking out loud here, anyone who's put their money in there thought of their, kita nak ke Mekah, that's, I want my family, or other Muslims to go there. People would have thought like that. People wouldn't have thought, okay, aku nak baca act sebelum masukkan duit saya ke dalam tabung haji. People wouldn't have thought. How much do the people, or as we say in Malaysia lah, me and you, the rakyat marhain, understand about what the act is, how the act covers their money? Was there a sort of an exercise to even tell people, okay, duit anda sekian-sekian under this act means this. Did the normal Malaysian or the normal Muslim or Malaysian Muslim who put his or her money in there understand this?
If you were to ask me, I believe it is hardly you can find as many people as willing to read all those acts. So what they can understand is that the government will say that the Tabung Haji is guaranteed by the government. So that's all the trust that the public read and believe.
Right. But therein lies the problem. The public trusted, because in religion there's no such thing as dishonesty, this, that. The public trusted, said, this is my hard-earned money. I work in the kampung. I have a small kebun. Inilah savings aku. I'm going to put it in there because I know it will be used for a good cause. But nothing was explained to them. Was at any point anything explained to them? Sorry, I'm menyimpang. I'm moving off topic a little bit, but I just want to get to that point.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if you are looking at every person, in order for them to do whatever they want, they must be responsible for themselves first. For example, if you wanted to put your money somewhere, you must understand clearly where the money goes, how safe the money are, whether it is, because you mentioned about Muslim issue of haram and halal.
Yeah.
This is a concern. So that's why when you're talking about the issue, when you put into the Tabung Haji, then I believe, for example, I say I'm a depositor, I believe that Tabung Haji will make sure that my money will be managed the way that it's supposed to be, in compliance to Sharia. So I already means to say that I have no doubt about that. So because it is Tabung Haji, and the government is the one that giving those guarantees that it is going to be run as the way it is supposed to be. That means must be Sharia compliant. Because how can you put the money into something that is non-Sharia compliant and use that money to perform Hajj? So it cannot be. So for the public, he is supposed to read, but anyway, hardly you can find anyone willing to do that. So that's why I mean, whoever responsible in managing this particular institution must ensure that if you want public to understand this, you must make sure that you create a strategy for the public to understand by letting all the public knows what you are doing, and etc. and etc. Yeah.
Which would only mean this, I guess. Moving forward, what we need to do is give people an understanding, simple people, simple language, the understanding of an act. An act can be written in very funny language or language that most of us don't understand, and it is that way. It's always been that way, and it'll always be that way because of technicalities that needs to be used in putting an act together. Now I think the understanding moving forward is more important, but let me try to bring on a little bit more about investment and risk management. So just for me to understand, because I'm not a math kind of guy, nearly 13 billion was reportedly lost through 14 investments. So 14 different investments, 13 billion was lost. 7 of them lost everything invested. For the ordinary depositor, the question is how so many major investments could go so badly wrong. Now, the government says 14 problematic investments resulted in almost 13 billion in losses. This is 13, not million, but billion in losses, with 7 suffering total losses. That means just washed out. Okay, does this point primarily to poor investment decisions, weak risk management, or deeper failure of governance and accountability? Please be as open and as honest as you want to be.
When just now I did mention about the first thing, the person who run, for example, the board members, must first understand the law itself. For that is how it exists. So, which means to say that this, in order to ensure that whatever necessary, the guide that been given in the act is being followed. So that's number one. And number two, this Tabung Haji is about managing asset, and mostly we're talking about money. When we're talking about managing money, you must be the person inside the board member must be a person who understands how to manage the money itself, and the money will be put into investment. So there must be a person who understands the investment inside the board too, because investment you are talking about, true enough, the scammers will say is that all investment are giving them profit guaranteed and etc. That what normally the scammers will say. But the institution like Tabung Haji must be clear that running an investment involves taking risks. When we are talking about taking risks, you must be able to measure the risk that you're going to take, whether that particular risk is substantiate or not, worth or not, And we are talking about the size of investment is another issue. Because Tabung Haji has, any institution, not only Tabung Haji, they has their own limitation from their total assets available for them that they can put into investment. So how many percentage that they can afford to put into any particular investment that they are allowed under the Act itself, for example. Yeah. So, and the third things I'm going to touch about is that it must be Sharia compliant. So the investment must not go into the non-Sharia compliant investment. So back to the issue you mentioned just now, whereby the investment that making losses, is that particular investment being thoroughly studied? The people who are managing those particular investment, whether they do proper due diligence or not on the investment prior to them making those particular investment. So yeah, that's another things or question that we need to
so
put
the
up.
thing, billions of dollars are the public money, or that of the Muslim public of Malaysia. How can we just buat anggaran that maybe like let's just approximate, let's just invest this money? You said they have to do thorough studies. Wouldn't people have known this before they even took on that responsibility of doing this? So I'm trying to understand how people think when they take on large sums of money and say, okay, we're going to take care of this money for you, let us do this, and then think, okay, just throw some money here, throw some money there. I've always used these two words in a lot of things we do, and once again I see it, and sorry for me commenting on this, but I see endemic mediocrity, more than anything else. It was not thoroughly done, like you said. So having said that, and I'm going to push this very quickly because we're running out of time. Look, now they're thinking the proposal for reform and regulation is very straightforward. Few things I'm going to talk about here. To manage the Hajj, but place the investment under the Malaysian financial market regulators, which means the Securities Commission will have something to do with it moving forward, or at least this is what the proposal is. Now, there's also other institutions like EPF, QAP, LTAT. They aren't banks, but they manage large sums of money for us, belonging to us ordinary Malaysians. We are the keepers of those monies. Now, the question is whether they should all face a clearer and more consistent form of supervision. What do you think?
Okay,
quite a few questions. I'm sorry about this. Yeah,
when we're looking at it, the issues like, for example, you mentioned about EPF, for example. EPF also have their own way of managing the investment. For example, they have a kind of like firewall between one type of investment to another. That is the way how they manage it, and this is being thoroughly strategized to ensure that there's no kind of involvement between, for example, the team of investment that investing in Malaysia and the team of investment that investing outside Malaysia, for example. So they will not be got influence between the two separate teams. So that's why they must have a certain firewall between them, for example. So similarly, these are, again, we must have a proper policies in managing all these things. So for example, in Tabung Haji itself also, they must have a proper way of having the right policies that suit them, because you cannot simply use whatever other people do with your organization. So different organization may have different kind or way of they manage it. But anyway, when looking at running or managing the investment itself, we must make sure that you have a proper policies that's suitable. So in this particular case, for the Tabung Haji, the criteria as I mentioned just now, that means to say investment must be properly studied prior to making those particular investment. For sure not to purchase something above market value, they want for sure. And the other things that to ensure that it is Sharia compliance, because it is Tabung Haji. These are the two main issue. And furthermore, who are responsible for all these things? For sure the board. They must make sure, the board must make sure that the investment committee and etc. are properly set up to ensure that it follow the standard investment regulation available. So in this case, we are talking about SC is coming into picture, whereby we have Capital Market Services Act available, which SC can use that to control the investment. So that being done by Tabung Haji. Yeah, I believe that will help strengthen for the investment strategy that the Tabung Haji can follow in the future.
I have one last question for you. Of course, Sam has told me we need to close, but I just need to put out this question. You talked about this board, and I need a very quick answer for this. What kind of speciality do we need to look for when we put the feelers out for board members lah lepas ni? What do we need? What kind of expertise do they need to have moving forward? Very quickly.
Okay, good. Number one, the board member must be able to understand the law itself, because that is the one that governs Tabung Haji. Number two, we must have the members that understand how the investment work, then how the money can be properly managed. So people who understand money and investment. And number three, we need to have a person who understand the Sharia itself, so that to make sure that the investment, everything done by the Tabung Haji, by the institution, is governed properly and abide by the Sharia principle. So that is the three very important one, but not limited to the three. It can be other areas also.
So with that, we'd like to thank you so much, ANUAR, for taking time off to be with us. I guess this conversation is not going to stop for a while. We're going to have to get more of an explanation, more of an understanding, and I think we will not find solutions in all conversations, but by getting this conversation started, we understand where our monies are going, and we understand how vigilant we need to be about our monies going into statutory bodies or organizations that say they're going to keep our monies for us. It's something for us to think about as Muslims, as Malaysians, as fathers and mothers, as brothers and sisters. I think moving forward, this is one thing we need to do, to understand how these monies affect us. And if they say there's an act, tell them, simply tell me how this act works for me. I think that's one way we should start looking at this as we move forward. On that note, I'm GERARD. This has been The Nation on Bernama TV. Thanks for watching.